Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another installment of Great Matters Radio. I'm your host, Michael Devine, America's Counselor. Why America's Counselor? Well, in case you haven't been on social media or paid attention to any of the presidential election stuff, America's in need of some serious counseling, and who better than me, an actual real counselor, that task it upon himself to bring it back together. Now, usually, I have a nice little co-host along with me, the armchair quarterback, but someone had to be sick. He's saying it's not coronavirus. I don't know. I don't buy it. He's not actually coming in at all, so I have no idea. So I brought my wife along, Jill. I don't have a nickname for her, just Jill. How you doing, hon?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Interesting week, hasn't it been, with this, this presidential election stuff? I mean, it's a little crazy out there, isn't it?
It has been.
I know. We have people that we thought were in it, and then now they're not in it at all, and then people kind of thought it was going to go one way, now it's going to go a different way. Shit, I don't know. I can barely keep up with it.
I'm just glad I didn't early vote.
Oh,
Would have been a wasted vote.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You
Would have been sad.
I know. You dropped your vote down for Mayor Pete, and so now you're not going to have Mayor Pete anymore to kind of vote for.
I was going to vote last week, too.
Yeah.
Get it over with.
It's okay, though.
Since I work.
You can
Monday
still,
through Friday.
we can still exercise your, your American duty to vote, right? When's ours is in a couple weeks now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as we speak right now, the Super Tuesday is happening. It literally, it's here. It's happening, and it's actually kind of amazing how literally, if you'd go off of social media, you would think it was a foregone conclusion. Bernie Sanders got his nomination. Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Bloomberg, I don't know, Warren. They're all going to play spoiler, but then
many.
I know so many. But then a bombshell got dropped. Buttigieg was the first one to drop out, and then Klobuchar followed shortly after that, and then it totally transformed this race, where all of a sudden Sleepy Joe, who we thought literally was going to be riding off into the sunset in a nursing home, is literally making a play now with Bernie. We got a two-man race, it seems like, right now.
I know.
It's
crazy.
I know. I like to think that maybe we had something to do with it, even though, I'm not sure if Mayor, or if Joe was listening to the shower's campaign people, but maybe they switched some things up. I don't know, but it's a new race. We said to do some things differently. I mean, I don't think it really had a difference, but I'm going to say that it did.
Maybe it did.
I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out.
Maybe it did.
I know the one thing, though, that it did accomplish, Jill. People are angry at me. I mean, literally, it was fascinating. I literally had to do screenshots. I was getting messages from Bernie supporters. And so the way I titled everything was, how can the Democrats beat Bernie Sanders? And people were fucking pissed. I mean, they were losing their shit. And it was quite apparent from their message, they didn't actually read the post. They didn't even watch the show. And it was funny because I would point out to him going, I'm guessing you're a Bernie Sanders supporter. Number two, guessing you didn't actually watch the show or read the post, because if you would have, our guests were actually Bernie supporters, and we actually laid out all the hypocrisy of what the Democrats are doing and how they're talking at Bernie Sanders supporters. And I just kind of redirected it, and then they did the very young millennial kind of thing. They just deleted it, their post. They didn't actually.
Were they young millennials?
A lot of them were, yeah. Yeah, and then they just deleted the post. They didn't say sorry. They didn't try engaging in a conversation. They just deleted it like it didn't happen.
People were kind of pissed before you even had the show. There were
Yeah,
people like,
that's true.
well, I won't be watching or
Yeah.
listening, as soon as you presented the topic. And then you kind of had a few conversations with people about it, and then you were like, well, be sure to stay tuned next week for for the opposite.
Well, we knew. I mean,
topic.
we kind of knew it was going to happen. I mean, I kind of worded things in a particular way, and so I wasn't.
People only read what they want to read or hear what they want to hear, and
it's frustrating. It is, but people always ask me why I do it. I mean, I'm sure you probably in your head probably go, why the fuck is he doing this? Because if we don't have the conversation, if there's nobody out there trying to have the conversations that we're having, nobody else really is. And so we have to continue doing it, no matter how much kickback there is, no matter how much vitriol we get, no matter how many negative comments we get, we have to keep going with it. But the thing is, like, what's also exciting is, I think, being a counselor, I think having the ability to read situations and word things differently. And it's been really cool the whole week. I've been talking to a lot of Bernie Sanders and in the opposite, because we were researching Tonight Show, which is basically how can Bernie beat the Democrats. And what was interesting is that if I prefaced right at the get-go, hey, listen, I'm literally serious when I ask this, or I'm not trying to be a troll when I ask this, or hey, I really appreciate your passion, or when people started getting angry, what was amazing is that their tone would change. It was almost like they realized I wasn't trying to troll them. They realized that I was legitimately asking real questions, and I always thanked people for talking with me. Even if we disagreed, it always ended perfectly. Like tonight, there was a Twitter user I was been talking with today, getting some information, and it was a pleasant conversation. We didn't agree on some things, but it never got out of hand. And I guess on one hand, I'm like, that's awesome. But then the other part of me is like, why should I be happy about that? Shouldn't that how it should be?
Right.
I shouldn't be excited that I could have a conversation like that and it doesn't descend into chaos. But I guess we've lowered the bar that much.
People are just so on the defense. I think if you call it for what it is right off the bat, in a sense, maybe it's received differently. I mean, I don't know. I think it doesn't. I mean, I think politics in itself make people tense, and they automatically have this wall up, like they don't want to hear it because it's been such a nasty conversation to be had for the last 12 years pretty much. I mean, I feel like this nasty rhetoric towards the president began with G-Dub.
Yeah, I mean, if we're being honest,
I mean, that's when it really got bad. That's when people really started getting disrespectful.
It got really ugly. I mean,
and then now it's like a culture now. I mean, that's 12 years in the making of this. I don't know.
Well, you saw it coming is when
conflict with each other, really.
Oh yeah, it was after 9/11. Yeah, it was 24-hour news cycle. They had to come up with stuff, and then when they started attacking Bush, like calling him an idiot, insinuating he was a moron, you knew when the second there was a Democrat in there, it was going to be the reverse. But then you can also then argue that, well, you know, Rush Limbaugh and all those guys in the 90s, before there was cable news, were doing the same thing on the radio. So it's it's kind of like who started it.
Then like social media and everything was really ramping, and I don't know, the media really had taken a different turn. I think around that time, that's when they really started playing into everything, and I don't know, it was just different.
It's just a shame because I think we're not as divided as we like to think that we are, but you see where all it takes is just one little thing, or people are so primed for it, and you gotta look at, I'm trained to do this, and I have to think on my toes to not trigger people. And you gotta look at, I feel like I'm deconstructing like a psychological warfare, it's like a nuclear bomb or a mine. I'm trying to diffuse it because they want it to blow up. But you see, though, it doesn't take much. All it takes is crafting a different message. But these candidates know what they're doing. That they know what they're kind of creating, which is half the problem right now. You know, and that's what tonight's show is going to focus on a little bit. So last week we covered, you know, hey, how can the Democrats beat Bernie? Tonight we're going to dive in. How can Bernie beat the Democrats? And I wanted you on the show. Now, Bill wasn't going to be able to be on the show anyway, you know, but you were going to be on the show regardless because I thought, not just because you're attractive and maybe it'd be clickbait, well, maybe a little bit, but no, like, I thought you would be a great guest because as I said at the beginning of the year, we're doing things a little differently with the show, and I could sit there and have some person from whatever think tank or whatever come and talk, but it's like, okay, they're all saying the same things. Let's actually talk to real people, and if people are really listening, I mean, there's useful things here if you're on a campaign or you're just a voter or just an American, and so I liked you because in 2016 you were a Bernie Sanders supporter. You were feeling the burn. You still got the shirt, right?
I have a shirt. It says "Feel the Burn."
In Texas, mind you.
In Texas.
Yes.
It was terrifying.
It was, yeah.
In Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, not quite as liberal as Austin, who I think Bernie probably won Austin, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because being in Texas for the last election, now being in Ohio, being much more down the middle and kind of neutral, where you don't know who's going to win the state, which makes it really fascinating, which made it all the more peculiar how in a Texas state where you went and we went and saw Bernie speak. I was there for moral support. I was not feeling the burn. You weren't
100% opposed.
Let's dive into that. So now
Okay.
we'll start with you. Like, so, and so I think this is really important, because if Bernie Sanders really wants to win over the Democrats, and just like every one of these candidates has a giant gap of support that they need to consolidate to not only win the nomination, but keep enough of those voters, prevent them from being alienated to where they're going to vote in the November election. So it's important to understand, why is it you had somebody that supported him at one point, but then why don't they support them now, and what we can learn from it. So what was it about Bernie when he came on the scene, and what he said, how he said it? Why did you support Bernie in 2016?
I think initially just his energy caught my attention. I don't think I really knew much about him prior to that, even though he's been in politics his whole life. So I think that was a big part of it. Like, I was like, wow, this, guy came out of nowhere to me, and he just caught my attention initially that way. And then I started learning more about him and who he was and how he's been this person his entire life. He's fought for the same things his entire life. He's really not ever changed. And so I was pretty, I don't know, kind of blown away by that, because I thought, wow, how many people do you know that are completely dedicated to the same causes and get arrested doing, community activism and all these things, that's just, I don't know. I thought it was cool, and that was initially where, he got my attention, I guess.
And that's what makes it even more interesting, because he hasn't changed. And yet, but your opinion of him's changed. And so, was there something inherently that changed for you? Like,
well, here's the thing: is even in 2016, his views and everything on the surface are great. Like, heck yeah, who doesn't want free healthcare?
Yeah.
Heck yeah, who doesn't want weed to be legal? I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't, but
yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty. Pretty liberal. I mean, I think I was even more liberal 4 years ago than I am now. So, I mean, on the surface, ideas are, good.
It makes
in
sense,
a sense, but not realistic. So, I don't know. I think the burn fizzled. Obviously, he didn't get the nom back then, but now, I know it's obvious, though, even if he were to get the nomination and he were to get elected, there's no way any of those things would pass.
Yeah.
And not in 4 years. And now he's older. I don't think he's healthy. I think, will he be here in 4 years to even do any of this? Or will he be healthy enough if he was president to be there the whole presidency? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's a legitimate question. I remember we had my father and Max Miller on. This was, I don't know, however many months ago, and we talked about age really should be a factor in a president. I mean, it's a
factor too with Biden.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, Bernie literally had a heart attack in the middle of his
campaigning.
Literally, and every time now he's on stage at these debates, screaming his beliefs at everybody over and over again, the same thing every time, over and over again. And I worry. I'm like, geez, like on the news, was it yesterday? His cheeks were all flushed and red, and I'm like, oh, I hope his BP's not high.
There's
there's things I'm now concerned about that I really wasn't so much 4 years ago.
Do you feel like there's something about his message that has changed, like how it's delivered? It seems to me it was really.
I think he's always been fiery. Like I think he's always been kind of a spitfire, which is what caught my attention initially back then. But now I just feel like it's almost too much.
Is that inherently what has started changing? The fact that his viewpoints haven't changed, the fact that it's come across a little more angry, a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, he is, and I feel like we're so divided, and he's done nothing to try to kind of come in the middle for the country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's kept it very much the same, very far left, and that's not going to solve anything. It's not going to bring anybody together. It's not going to him spewing his views at everybody and not even trying to hear or see the other side. And I think that's frustrating. And I think that's exactly what we don't need right now, especially. I don't know if so much 4 years ago it was that bad. Now it's that bad.
What do you think about his supporters? I know a lot of times people point to the Bernie bros. Is there anything about his supporters that turn you off to Bernie, or is it purely just Bernie?
I don't know. I think people probably, maybe people feel like I felt like 4 years ago, like, oh, well, his ideas are good on the surface, but do they really think into it? Mm-hmm. You know, how that's going to work? Because he'll never get any of that done in 4 years. It would take more like 8. By then, how old is he going to be? 84?
Oh, God, yeah, he's 78, right?
Is he 78? Yeah. I wasn't sure if he was 78 or 76. I believe, yeah. So, well, he'll be 82 in 4 years, but he would never get any of that done at all in 4 years. Yeah. It's too much of a change. So, I mean, I don't know.
Well, and how's it played for you?
I wonder, though, if it's... I don't know.
Well, how does it play for you when they're asking him point blank? I mean, I don't know how many times they asked him, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to get it passed, right? What do you think of his answers? Because that's a very legitimate question to you, and I think a lot of moderates. Mm-hmm. What do you think of his answers, the way he gives them about those questions, and how does it come across?
I don't think he ever... Does he really ever fully answer the question?
No.
I'm like, I don't remember him ever actually fully answering the question. So that's frustrating. And I think that's a problem, though, with a lot of candidates, to be honest. I don't think they ever fully have a plan. Yeah, their ideas are great, but when it comes down to it, what is your plan? How are you going to do it?
And that's something I think there's a giant generational gap. I was speaking to a Twitter user the other day about this, and it was, I don't know what it was. It was maybe after being called a old, overeducated white person. Like, I literally have been called that probably 20 times in the last week.
Because you're so old.
I guess. I don't know. But it was very derogatory, and literally... because of the state of just everything, you can be twisted as racist. And I even felt weird even like saying the reverse of going, don't you find that being incredibly racist when you're calling me old, I'm white, and I'm overeducated? And I hated that. And one of the things that I tried getting some of the users I was talking to understand that at our age group, so I guarantee they're in their 20s, right? Mm-hmm. Mid to late 20s, a lot of them, and they've been around for 2 probably presidential elections. I go, my first one was in 2000. I've been through 4 of these things, right? And I was paying attention to politics in 96 before I could even vote. And the one thing is that we've been lied to so many times. A lot of us were disappointed by Obama because we thought, especially with healthcare, we thought Obama was going to get a lot more done, especially when we had the House and the Senate. We had a nice, healthy majority. I mean, even stuff Clinton said, even stuff Bush did. We've been lied to and promised so many things that have never turned out. We've also seen the vitriol, the polarization get so bad that things that used to not be political now are. Things that used to be easily passed aren't even passed anymore. I mean, it's at the point now where even if someone had the cure for cancer, if the other party came up with it, they probably wouldn't vote for it just to not give them a victory.
It's all a game.
It's all a game.
And even what played over the weekend is a total game.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah.
I mean, it was totally strategized, even as far as Beto coming out and endorsing him just to try to get the vote in Texas somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, strategic.
I mean, it was completely. I mean, yesterday I thought, who has anybody? You were like, oh, I forgot about
him. Yeah.
Yeah, and then later I thought about it and I was like, oh, well, that's probably why.
Yeah, I mean, everything is politics now, and so I try to get them to understand the context of why moderates our age are so hung up on the passability and the cost. I go, because that's what all we know is being lied to, things being sold a false bill of goods. So that is our number one thing. Whereas they haven't been through that yet. They haven't been jaded and disappointed. That's and so part of me was I admire that idealism.
I feel like if I was younger, I mean, 4 years ago, I wasn't that much younger. Yeah. And Bernie caught my eye. I feel like if I was younger, heck yeah, even more so. So, I mean, I get it.
Yeah, and I get that when they go, you guys are just scared of change. And honestly, I get that because
if they were talking to an 80-year-old, maybe. You know what I mean? I think that's the hardest to change.
Yeah, I know.
But it is insulting.
It is. It's incredibly insulting. And that's where I kept trying to go for the route of trying to get them to understand. But you also get a sense of people, they don't want to change their opinion. It's very much what we used to call accommodation and assimilation, where how do you get new information? It's almost easier just to not incorporate it so you don't have to adjust what you think. And I did my best, but that was something I think a lot of Bernie supporters just don't quite understand why. It's not that we are bought and paid for. It's not that, and everything was about compromise. Every time I mentioned moderate, it was compromise. That's why I tried to go bold last week with new plans, because moderatism doesn't mean compromising or pandering to the right. It just meant coming up with something different. And they look at anything that is not his plan, it's you're pandering to the right and watering it down just to get it approved.
I feel like being a moderate is like the ultimate compromise in a sense.
And that's, I guess, when we're part of that group, maybe it's just, this is the first, I think, election where, and I told you this the other night when we were talking when we were out, that this is the first time I think I've really truly felt a giant gap my age and the younger generation. And I'm trying to pay attention to that. I try to account for it as a therapist. I really do. It's tough to try to take that hat off or put it back on, really, in my personal life, because I do it so much as a therapist. But I get it. I get the idealism. I get that just like their perspective, they don't understand being lied to and disappointed, just like they probably don't understand that the macro and microeconomic principles of things. And so I get it, but that's where I look at, but that's one thing when it's supporters. And supporters, I look at, take their cue from their candidate. And one of the biggest flaws I see in how Bernie is running his campaign is that every time a moderate, every time he's asked about it, he shrugs it off. He immediately goes into what is fair, unfair, right or wrong. What's the moral imperative? And it's like, listen, if I lived in a world of what was right, the Mets and the Eagles would win the Super Bowl every single year, and Andretti would win the 500 every single year. But I don't live in a world that is the ideal. We live in a reality of what is. And that's the thing where I look at, he should know better, because his supporters, they should be the ones out there doing the legwork of convincing people on the fence. I don't know what did you do with Obama? Were you really involved during the 2008 election?
Yeah.
Did you actually talk to people about Obama and try to talk to them and convince them?
I don't think so.
I think that for me was my first election where I've never really done that, to be honest. Probably because I grew up in Texas and it was like one way or the highway. Like I feel like even talking about politics and not agreeing with being a Republican, it was really a difficult topic. That's true.
It was rough. So I don't know.
Yeah, for me,
I mean, my own mother is a raging liberal in a very painfully red state. So it was hard. And I told you that my mom made, phone calls. When I remember growing up, she was on the phone calling people and doing that. And I don't know, my mom though is very much more outspoken than I am. Yeah. Much more in terms of that. So I don't know, but
yeah, I just remember
I didn't do that.
Yeah, I just remember during the primary, because when I remember Obama at the 2004 election, the Democratic convention, and he gave this speech that he was talking. It was the line. It was just brilliant. I remember I was kind of half paying attention, and I was like, "Well, now this freshman senator from Chicago." Right. Remember okay, whatever, And he had the swag when he walked down. I'm like, who is this guy, right? And I remember people talking about this Obama guy, right? And he gave this speech, and it almost gave me chills, where he was talking about, we're not the red states of America, we're not the blue states of America, we're the and I remember I had chills, and I remember going, why is this fucking guy not running? And so when Kerry lost, I knew it was like, this guy is going to run in 2008, right? But then Hillary, that was going to be a buzzsaw, and I remember talking with people about Obama. I remember sitting there, I campaigned for him. I was at the Obama headquarters when he won, and I remember talking to people, listening, like, hey, what is it that you have against Obama? Why do you feel? But I tried talking to people. It wasn't talking at them.
Right.
That, to me, was why Obama got elected. That was part of it. It's also part of the reason why I think a lot of us were disappointed by Obama, because we I think, held him up to where he was going to be the next Kennedy. and just it was just. It was just it was a combination of maybe he didn't have the stomach for it, and I think we just had such high expectations that he could never fulfill. It was too high.
Were high, and then I think by the end he was burned out. Like he was checked out those last
done.
2 years. I could tell a huge change.
It was done. I mean, it was one of those where you could tell he probably wouldn't have run if he didn't need, if it didn't have the duty. And I get it. But I look at the people were what helped get Obama elected, and that's the one thing we took that directive from him and how he talked. Bernie, when he is unwilling to even answer questions about it, if anything, acts incredulous to it. Just goes, oh, you say we can't do that. I'll tell you something, and you're telling me these at a nation of our means. And it's like, okay, you keep dodging the question.
Right.
And then his supporters do the same thing. And not only that, when people ask him and he brings up it's about the whole reason that even what happened the other day with when Buttigieg, Klobuchar dropped out, he was like, well, you see, this is the Democratic establishment, aligning. And I go, okay, that's one way of looking at it. The other way is
yeah. Then he made them the complete enemy, more so than he already had by saying that.
And that's think about what you just said is that you were a former supporter, and it made it almost he's more the enemy to us.
Well, he made the party he's running in the enemy.
Yep.
Which I know his opponents are in a sense, but again, dividing within even his own party.
Well, there was no acknowledgement of the reason why maybe people aren't buying in. It has nothing to do with corruption and fear, and that we're really the establishment. It was, there's a lot of us moderates who are going, it's not going to get done. It's unrealistic. And I think that's going to be a fatal flaw throughout the whole socialist republic, the socialism thing. And he doesn't even want to acknowledge it. And I feel like there's an entire swath of independent, moderate voters who he just totally alienates, belittles, almost devalues our viewpoint of it, and where he can't even acknowledge of why there's kickback against him. And it's like with Trump sometimes, do you get it? And I feel like he's almost making the same mistake that the Democrats made about Trump, is that, do you really understand why people aren't going along with this? I thought the Democrats were doing the same thing.
I sometimes wonder too, because this has been his initiative forever. If he's getting older, he knows probably this is the last time, so he's going to give it his all. He doesn't care. I'm not backing down. I think that's his mentality.
Yeah.
And it's showing. I mean, but it's not good for him. You know what I mean? For being able to do that, but it's not helping his cause.
Now, the thing is, as I look at the big ones that he's been rolling out, so we have the healthcare for all, Medicare for all. We have the free college tuition for everybody, free. So forgive everything. Free community college and state colleges.
Who doesn't want any of this?
I know. It's free. Free.
But then the logic kicks in.
Exactly. And then the new one, then he threw down, which it was kind of like you already can't afford it, and then he threw in free childcare for all, which is going to be another 1.6 trillion or something.
Unnecessary.
Yeah. So I think they had it estimated out. It was like the total number. It was like 14 to 16 trillion. Every one of his policies. Now, the best part about all of this, right? His healthcare plan alone would be 100% of all of the U.S. budget. That's not including anything else. Nothing. 100%, right? So then that's just healthcare, and then add in all the other ones, right? And then when you ask, how are you going to pay for it? For him to act incredulous to that, it's kind of like... So then I asked people online, well... I challenged them on it, and they simply went, well, go to his website. So I go to the website. You see the policies. I'm going to tax this. I'm going to tax this. Well, then I'm going to tax this. I'm going to tax this, right? Now, given, the wealthy should be taxed more. I totally agree. But you know what you don't see on there? There's no percentages of what the tax rate's going to be.
Oh, yeah,
all it says is...
In my mind, I was like, well, by how much? That's what I kept thinking.
So we're going to add a wealth tax to this. And then it would be, we estimate it's going to bring in this amount of money. We're going to add but you never ever see what the tax rate would be. They don't include that at all, right? Which means then what the fuck is that tax rate? In my head, I'm going, what do you tax them 50%? So then the thing is, and I was like,
Could you imagine, like, there's the school levy in our own township that we live in that people are in an uproar over, which would probably raise the average person's mortgage probably $50 a month, which is a lot to some people. It is. I get it completely, but then what's there to lose?
Exactly.
But if $50 is a lot to an average middle class,
well, here's the best
family,
part. Well,
imagine what that would be like for all of what he wants to do.
Well, remember, he actually, part of his platform is the Green New Deal, right? Part of the Green New Deal is a 50% tax on the wealthy, which, and then and AOC said it should be as high as 90, right? Now, here's the thing, right? So let's say, and this is where you look at the math, you're a business owner.
90%?
That's what she said it should be. So I think they had it as 50% for
anyone. How would they even live?
I have no idea. Well,
like on what wealthy? Like what?
It was like I got to look at the number.
Range,
it was something like if you're making like the way Bernie had it broken down. It's like it was tiered. So it's like you make like 1 million to 5, it's this. You make from 5 to 10, it's this. If you make from 50 to 100 million, then if you're like 500 million above, it's like whatever, right? And I think with AOC is if like you're making over like $100 million and above, it's fit. Now here's the deal though. So let's say you make $100 million as a corporation. Now you just got taxed at an additional 50%, right? You make more money at, like, I mean, think about it. I can make more money at $50 million. So then you start thinking at a macro level of what's the advantage as a business to expand and grow your business? And then all of a sudden, what is the downstream effects on new hires, how much they're going to pay? So great, you get free college. And the point I made last week. Great, you got free college. Who do you think the corporations are going to hold accountable for that? We're talking about the same corporations they have children of their own. They knowingly change the laws to pollute the environment. Knowingly, they're destroying the environment for their own kids. They put profits above them. We have an airline company that literally was putting faulty airplanes in the air and was making cost-benefit analysis of how much it was going to cost to recall these things, right? So you think they're not going to hold you guys accountable. So it's all these things where I think people like us are sitting there going, it doesn't make any sense. The companies are going to fucking, even if you somehow got it passed, which it's not going to happen. They were even going, well, I think we can get back 60% of the seats. I go, what fucking map are you looking at that you're going to gain all those seats back? Like, you're going to be lucky to get it 50-50. That's a fucking miracle. You're telling me you're going to gain like 7 more? Then Elizabeth Warren's plan was, we're going to pass an anti-corruption. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, let's. So, but all right, I'm getting fired up. This is what fucking happens all the time. Bill ain't here to keep me calm down, so.
I'm just.
I know. So, all right. So this is, I mean, you and I are representative of the moderate Democrats, and we feel obviously very belittled. We feel like they don't give a crap about it. And now all of a sudden, the dynamics have changed tonight. All of a sudden, now we haven't looked at the live results, so I'm sure we'll look at them tonight. But now all of a sudden, it's a game changer. Biden consolidated the moderate vote, so they almost were acting like they didn't need the moderate vote. That they didn't have to pander to it. They can do whatever. Now, all of a sudden, Biden's consolidated it. Yeah, he's going to have to get them now. And now the thing is, this is how all of us feel. And he's going to have an uphill battle.
I think Sanders dug his own hole there. He
did. Yeah.
He did. The establishment formed against him, and that's it. I mean, that's...
Do you think he was anticipating what happened? Because they said he was blindsided, from what I understand.
He seemed pretty angry, so he probably was, because he was pretty pissed, you could tell, and that's when all this establishment talk started.
Yeah. It was done at the most inopportune time for him right before Super Tuesday, which, honestly... and to have that change in that short amount of time is huge. Yeah, and huge. Huge.
I did pronounce my H.
Well, and that's the thing where I don't think they were anticipating. If you were to look online up until the polls started coming out today, it was almost like his support. They were almost like, "We got this in the bag. This is us."
It
right?
was worrying me.
It was worrying. Yeah. Now all of a sudden, this is like even before tonight's numbers started coming out. We were going to do the show anyway, but I think it's even more imperative now with what I'm going to lay out of maybe a way for him to kind of maybe try to appeal to the moderates and seeing, is there a way for him to undo what he did? Because he did a lot of damage. Just like
I don't think he would.
I don't think he can. He's in the Trump land of what got.
Honestly, if he did, I'd be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Because that makes him a hypocrite.
Well, I'm going to test it out on you, okay? So, just like we did last week, okay?
I think he's so adamant about what he believes, and he's preached it now all this time. If he started to backpedal,
yeah. So all right. So I'm going to say how I frame this one, because this is a little bit different than last week's. Last week's was a little bit more strategic, I think, going after the Bernie supporter. This one's a little bit different, just because of this one. Bernie is so rigid. I had to really think about, because I just didn't want to spout something that was my idea. It was something I legitimately thought he would have the ability to actually roll out and do, because he's not quite in Trump territory, where Trump territory is when he was running for president in 2016, when he said, I could go and shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and my supporters are not going to leave me. It was true. But the thing is, though, he could do that as long as he didn't change his tone. Trump is locked into his shtick, because the second he changes his rhetoric, he loses that base. They're going to be like, what the fuck happened? This is the same base that literally today.
Has it happened, though?
Well, I mean, it was interesting because
maybe a small percentage.
Maybe he can't change, right? Trump can't because of that. It's at a point right now, because it's early, and all that matters right now is winning, which means then he has the ability of knowing if he's going to lose if he doesn't change. He almost has no choice, and he hasn't been doing the same thing for like 4 years. I mean, a lot of these new voters are new, fervent kind of voters. So I think he does have an ability. And so I started looking at his policies, what he said, what his supporters, I haven't got ideas from them. So all my listeners out there and all the followers, I appreciate you guys. You guys, once again, feel like you're probably talking to the enemy, but hey, you were kind of giving honest feedback of what they thought maybe would be salient points. And so I try to come up with what I feel as though is a winning kind of record. So this is what I kind of came up. So all I want you to do is listen to what I'm saying, and I want you to kind of go, all right, I want you to listen to a couple of the policies and then try to give like your real-time reaction. So after each policy, I'm going to try to get you your opinion pretty much and seeing would it move the needle for you if he were to say this. Okay? All right. So I'm going to start off with healthcare. That's the pièce de résistance. So from talking with all of us moderates who are not giant supporters or don't agree with it, the things that we disagree with, number one, the affordability factor. It is not affordable, right? The rigidity of just ram it through, it doesn't matter, no compromise, Medicare for all. I mean, that's it, right? And we know that's not going to pass. We know it's not affordable. So that's where I was like, okay, what would actually work, but give him some runway room? So this is what I came up with. Now, I'm not going to talk like Bernie because that'd be patronizing.
Yes.
So now, if Bernie were to come out, okay, with a policy that basically was, listen, I feel as though Medicare for all is the way to go. It really is a moral imperative that with a country like ours, the fact that we are having to pay so much for such crappy care, that we have people dying, choosing between, we should not have it that way, and no one's going to disagree with that. But guys, we also have to face the reality of looking at we got to look at the economics of everything. And I know I've always said we have to do Medicare for all, but the reality comes down to it is that, like any system, no system can change right from the get-go. It doesn't matter if it's a business, a family, your life. Change has to happen in a sequential order and a systemic approach. That's the only way, because just like if you swing it in one direction, it's going to swing back resistance the other way. So if we're going to do this, we're going to have to roll it out in piecemeal. So number one, the biggest impediment to getting the other side to go along with healthcare is the cost of it. So what I'm rolling out is we have to put cost controls and cost constraints on our healthcare system. The supply side of it, our pharmaceutical companies, the device manufacturers, the hospital, the doctors. We got to cap cost. We're going to renegotiate every single deal they got. That way then the HMOs, the Medicare, the Medicaid, they are all charging the same amount. We're going to be charging the same amounts they charge the foreign. We're going to make it even across the board. Because if we're able to do that, now all of a sudden these costs that we talk about, the thing that the Democrats Democrats and a lot of our moderates are saying that isn't going to work. They're not going to get them on board. Now, all of a sudden, it isn't this $16 trillion or $4 trillion deal. Now, all of a sudden, we've cut the cost down by half. We could probably even cut it down by almost, over half. Mm-hmm. And now, all of a sudden, now we're going to put Republicans in a position of, how do you not vote for this? Mm-hmm. Your complaint was it's too expensive. We made it affordable. And the fact of the matter is now all of a sudden, why would there be public health care? So the thing is, it's going to take us some time. It might take me almost 2-3 years. It might take me almost into the end of my first term. But the reality comes down to it. I feel as though if we can get the cost down, and now all of a sudden we're saving money. Now we have a surplus probably because, how much of our money is going towards Medicare and Medicaid? Our health care is going to be more affordable in the interim for our private health insurance because the health care companies are in the middle. They don't have to squeeze health care. So now all of a sudden, they're not going to be cutting granting off at the knees for their medication. They're not going to be telling you your asthma medication's too expensive. Try this other one. So then people get better health care in the interim. Rates go down. And then all of a sudden Medicare and Medicaid's more affordable. Now then we put Republicans into a position where they have no choice. We take away every reason they have to not vote for it, and we do it. Mm-hmm. So that is my suggestion. So what do you think when you hear that? If that were Bernie mm-hmm. Sanders, and knowing what you know about Bernie, if he were to switch course with something like that? I don't
know. Yeah, that sounds much better.
More on you as an individual.
I don't know. I'm such a person of principle. The fact that he has preached and been so hardcore about all of this, and now we're going to backpedal. I get it, but I don't know.
You wouldn't believe it, would you?
No. However, that sounds pretty damn good. And I wonder if, in the end, it would be cheaper than raising your taxes and just by doing it that way. In the end, maybe for some people, maybe not.
You're gonna have to raise taxes. I think any way you look at it.
But to the extreme. No, it was free.
Yeah, it's raising taxes, but it to me it knocks out two birds with one stone. You lower the cost to where you prove that your plan works. You now have it, instead of going, I don't know how much it's going to cost. Now you know, no, this is how much it's going to cost.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no.
I was just gonna say, if he had said this from the beginning, great, but.
Yeah, but
how do you go from 4 years ago saying I want free health care for all, because that's always been his thing, to now saying, oh, well.
I think it's being honest. I think if you sit there and go, listen, guys, I've been sitting there looking at this left, right, and center, and the reality comes down to it is that I could lie to you guys and say that we can do this, but the more and more I look at this, if I'm really being honest, it's not a matter. And the thing is, and this is why I picked this, he never said that this wasn't his plan. He didn't say how long it was going to take. He just says we need to do it. So he's left himself technically an opening to where he never said how long it was going to take. He didn't say what the plan was. So all he has to do is go, listen, so I've never ever given you the blow by blow, the black and white of how it's going to work. This is how it's going to work. And then if people go, well, that seems a little bit different than what you've kind of insinuated, going, listen, guys, all you have to do is go to basic elementary school math and realize, we have some issues here. And we also have the reality of, it's going to be tough to get everyone on board with this. But if we do it this way, it's better for everybody. It's the best way of doing it, and we get more people on board. And then all of a sudden, instead of doing a watered-down plan like Obamacare, like Joe Biden said, he had to work his ass off for a watered-down Obamacare that really didn't work all that well. Right. And he knows that. He was in that fight on the Senate. So if he were to sit there and go, it will work out better for us. We'll get more of what we want if we do it this way. His people will go along with it because he never technically said you couldn't do it. Right. So that's why I kind of chose that. And so I think if he came at it from like that, now all of a sudden these moderates that are going, I like that because that's more in depth than anything else. It makes sense. He would jump everybody to the gun. And it's like, I like that plan better. I like it better than anything anyone else has said. So
he used to be, I feel like a lot of his spiel was about cracking down on pharmaceuticals and all that stuff. And he's really not even gone into that much. It's more just about free healthcare for all. He's just really hammering the basis of his platform into everybody. But
why? Because that was effective in 2016.
When you said that, I was like, I don't remember him. No. Maybe I just feel now it's like Charlie Brown, like at this point, and maybe he has said that. I don't know, and I just didn't pay attention. But
no, he'll like when challenged, he'll say, "Well, the corrupt pharmaceutical But then it's like, why are you not then going, this is how we're going to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think to me, like, that would even get me to pay attention because I like Bernie as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I like Joe Biden as a human being. I think Joe is a little old and a little kooky, but I mean, it's Joe. And like, I like Bernie.
A little sleepy.
Yeah, I like Bernie. I think they're good Americans. They're great people.
I think they have good intentions.
And I think that's what gets lost in politics nowadays is that you can like someone as a human being but disagree with them in their policies, and at the end of the day you can still respect them. And that's somewhere that got lost in politics because maybe it's not effective in a campaign. So all right, so that one definitely moves the needle, I think. That would be a game changer in my opinion because it doesn't change anything that he's doing. It just makes it more specific. But all right, I won't dive into what I was just about to say. I was going to talk about those tax policies, but I'll save that one for another day.
Stay on track.
Stay on track, right? So then the other one, and now this is actually technically an offshoot of what I was basically saying last week. It's almost like the same solution with his college tuition, college free for all, right? So one of the biggest issues that I see with a lot of the college tuition is one, just the cost. Two, kids made personal decisions and it almost kind of lets them off the hook. They don't have to do anything for it. Two, it doesn't fix the problem. It's like the college tuition is still going to be really expensive, and two, you're not going to get it passed, right? So that's when I'm like, all right, well, kids will love it because it's free. It's free. Kids feel screwed over even though like they kind of made those decisions. Like it's amazing when kids go, oh my God, it costs that much? Like, yeah.
Well, what about the ones who just kind of coast their way and are in college for 12 years before they graduate?
Or the ones that graduate with a 2.0.
Or the people, like, I don't know, like, are they going to put a limit on how much you can take out? Because that's something I didn't think about when I was in college. And then I ended up with huge
they should.
student loans to pay back because I needed it to get by. I had to work.
It's stupid. It's, and I get it. Kids, like, I mean, everyone talks about how good the Trump economy is, but the reality is young kids are not that good. I mean, the under/unemployment rate, it's like a lot of people saying it's around 60%, meaning they're working 2 jobs, they're not working the job that they want. And a lot of it's a product of it's just got that much more competitive. It used to be you get a college education, you get a job. Now it's you better have 1 to 2 years of experience. But the thing is, though, a lot of it you have to blame the parents. Parents told them, oh, no, honey, focus in on grades and work your way through college, not realizing that grades were the least of important because you know what happened? College kids, all they cared about was grades and not actually about learning the material. So then they got into the real world and all of a sudden they didn't know how to perform. So businesses now are going, I could give 2 shits about your fucking GRE score or your grades.
Don't care about it anymore.
I want to know how well you did in your internships. Did they offer you a job? Did they bring you back? Did you have multiple? I want to know. That's what matters to them, right? So that's why I'm like, all right, so how do you meet them in the middle of that mindset? They feel screwed over. They did get screwed over with getting gouged with pricing of college books and all that. I mean, I totally admit that they did get screwed over in that aspect. We all did.
We all survived.
The
old people survived.
We did. We're still paying off our loans.
Exactly, and we are surviving.
So that's when I was like, okay, so what do you do with them? And as I said last week, I think what the answer has to be is, once again, you have to break it down into, like, listen, guys, what's the old saying? You can give a man a fish, he eats for a day, teach him how to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And the reality comes down to it is that, we can help reimburse some of your loans just because you guys got screwed over and we have to offset it. But the reality also comes down to it is that we also have a math problem to worry about. Now, we're going to have some wealth taxes. We're going to raise taxes on the upper people because, you know what? They've taken so much from our country for their own good. Well, we're going to do the opposite. They're not giving it to us, so we're going to do it back for them, right? So, but the other kind of come down to that, I feel as though that we need to rebuild this country together. I had a little quote that I had. It's, like John F. Kennedy, not ask what not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Mine was going to be, not ask what your country can do for you, but more of what we can do for our country together. And we have to rebuild this country. Our infrastructure is crumbling. Our environment is abysmal, right? We have to address climate change, but we need more help. The thing is, though, we can't afford to do all these things. Even if we tax the shit out of everybody, we have the reality of we need help. So here's what it comes down to. I want to invest in you guys. So for you guys don't want to do anything, I'm going to do. We'll give you guys some breaks. We're going to offer up some tuition reimbursement. We'll offer up better ways. But I want to offer up a new works program. So Anybody who's graduated from certain fields, STEM fields, business fields, whatever it is, right? If you want to invest in your country and help rebuild this country together, I'm going to invest in you. Now, maybe if you're an engineer where maybe you could make $70,000 right out of school, you're not going to make that for us. You're going to make about $40,000, right? But here's the deal. You're going to get the best health care. You're going to get the same health care that every one of our congressmen get. You're going to have your college tuition reimbursed. You're going to owe us about 5 years. It's like an ROTC program, but it's for your business, for the country. So you can help rebuild infrastructure, electrical grids, even down to computer work, computer programming, business, accounting, whatever it is, law, legal. Anybody who wants to help rebuild this country, I will invest in you. You're going to owe us some time. And you're going to make a little less money, but you're going to get the best health care. You're going to get great benefits. You're going to get retirement. But that's how we rebuild this country. We can't have it both ways. We have to choose one or the other. You either get the money for free and our infrastructure is for shit, and let's be honest, we're probably going to piss off a lot of the businesses. And I can tax the shit out of them, but they're probably going to try to punish you guys. That's how corrupt this shit is. You guys both and I know that. So why don't we play both sides of the coin? Let's rebuild the country together. Don't even allow them to have the opportunity to do that. Don't let them take your jobs away from you. And you guys are going to help rebuild this country. So if you heard something like that, and even for people like us, if you're a nurse, you want to work for an NIH hospital. If you're a counselor, you want to see Medicaid, Medicare, veterans for discounted rate for free. You can do that.
I mean, there are programs now similar.
But you have to live in like Pig's Knuckle, Idaho, or you can't live.
They used to have a good reimbursement program for nurses, but you had to work for like a nonprofit. There was like a ton of stipulations. You had to work for them for.
And what, 1% are getting reimbursed?
So many consecutive years. Yeah. And then you had to get approved. Only so many were approved each year. So they do have opportunities, but it's just not enough.
Yeah. So it's like if you heard that. I mean, does it resonate with you? Does it make you go, huh? I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Definitely makes me more open-minded than just having somebody shout the same thing at me over and over again.
I mean, and that's the thing, though.
Eventually, you just don't want to hear it anymore.
Well, it just feels like it gives them an out. I mean, that one would be, of all the plans I just presented, like I think that would be the toughest sell, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
It'd be tough, but I think he could get away with it because it makes sense. Because kids just don't want a free education. They want a job. And I think if you went and said, listen, like, what jobs do you think are going to be there for you after we've cost these companies all this money?
And essentially, it's similar to them having an internship in college than having that job lined up right away. Only it's almost like an extended internship in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a post-grad.
Yeah.
And you can even set up gap year programs for money. You could set up internship programs while you're going to school. I mean, there's a million different ways to play it, but the reality comes down to we need to rebuild the country, and they are part of it. They can be part of the future, and they can have a really important job. And to me, it makes the most sense in the world. Once again, it mitigates because you're now rebuilding the country on the backs of low price labor, but then the low price labor is getting their tuition reimbursement and great health care. It's like a win-win for everybody, So those are the two that I decided to tackle because one, the tax one, shit, that would be a whole fucking episode in and of itself. I'm not even going to get into that one. And that one just, all right, we're going to be realistic. He's not giving in on that one, right? And then I'm just going to be arguing percentages, and that is not really good radio, right? So I picked those two. And to me, they're small changes. I mean, they're big, but they're things to where, imagine if it's neck and neck. It's Bernie and Joe is presenting his policies. I couldn't tell you a single policy Joe has presented. I don't know. I don't know anything. Either. I know he is a good guy. I know he wants to beat Trump. I
actually didn't anticipate he would be where he is right now, to be honest.
No?
I really didn't.
So I think about it.
So we'll see.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. In a neck and neck, we got to look at it. Whatever happens tonight, you got a neck and neck race, and it is wide open now between those two. Tell me how Joe Biden can beat Bernie Sanders if he makes a tack to the center like that and then attempts to reach out to people like us.
Well, what happens if Warren drops out? with Sanders' numbers.
I think the problem is you're going to have Bloomberg and Warren dropping out at the same time because both of them were as abysmal tonight. I mean, you got to look at Bloomberg spent $500 million just through Super Tuesday for him not to win anything more than America Samoa. That's Better Call Saul. That's his Saul Goodman's alma mater. So so I think
that's true. It would be even. You think
it's even? I think they equally pulled from each other. So. I mean, I think, honestly, I would actually be more apt to vote for Bernie because I think Bernie could win with that against Trump.
With your ideas, you mean?
Yeah, okay. I think if he made a tack to the center like that, I think it'd be a tough fight with Trump. He won't at all. But but the whole point of the show is that if you're a Bernie supporter, if you're a Bernie campaign person, and the cool thing is, like, these people are open. I mean, I've reached out to a couple of the other candidates, and I've had some great conversations with them. If you know how to reach out in the right ways, they'll listen. Will their idea get to the candidate? No, but it's going to get to some people where it's going to get put on the table and discussed. Right. And I think if we're in the show. I mean, I don't know. I think we're almost at 4,000. For the last episode, we're getting close to it. I mean, maybe one of those 4,000 is a Bernie person, right? Go and reach out to the campaign handlers. If you like what we're saying and you think it's a good idea, reach out to the campaign handlers. Tell them to listen to the show, or just tell them, hey, listen, I heard this podcast, present some good ideas. I kind of like this. Maybe you need to pass this on to the right people. And if enough handlers are all going to their handlers going, listen, we're hearing some chatter, and there's been some ideas out there. I think you guys should hear it. That's how campaigns change and shift. They're meeting every day to look at data and figure out what they need to do differently. The data is there. So if you like what we're saying and it resonates and you think Bernie is your guy and maybe this would be the thing that would get a lot of these moderates, make some noise. Share the show. Do what you got to do because that's what this campaign season is about. You have more of a voice and access than ever before. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have either email addresses. That's all available for you right now. So take that anger and frustration instead of calling us old, overeducated. Now, if you think I'm wrong, tell me why I'm wrong. Don't say that I'm old and out of touch. Try to interpret my actions through I care. Right. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't like you guys. I wouldn't be doing this if I was just in a can for one candidate. I care about this country, and I just want the best candidate to win. And the best candidate is about listening and hearing and talking to people and having solutions that are actually going to work, not just for your party or your constituents. And that's why I like doing this show, because it gives me that element of, instead of just internalizing anger and, having an hour diatribe that my wife tells me just to quiet down, I have to do it with you guys. And actually, it stands a chance of making a difference. And I know we can, because all the conversations I'm having with everyone on Twitter and Facebook, and it's been awesome. It's been cool. It gives me hope that we're all like a motley crew, a bunch of misfits, and we're all able to talk with each other. So yeah, I mean, that's it. That's what I got. And maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Hopefully I'll get less hate mail this week. I mean, I appreciate it. I like your guys' passion. You care. But maybe it'll be less this week. Although that's all going to change next week when we start bringing in the Democrats versus Trump and Trump versus the Democrats. That one kind of scares me a little bit, but, you got to do it, right? It can't be any worse than, some of the other shit that I got. So we'll see. True. So any last parting words? Or do you think we did a decent job, represented it well? And
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Any last reactions? Any last parting words?
I don't know. What will be, will be. We shall see.
we shall see, right? All right. On that note, look, we kept it under an hour. It's amazing when Bill is in here.
You're welcome.
He's the one.
You're welcome, America.
Yeah. Bill is the one that I think makes it go long, everybody. So just remember that when Bill isn't here,
I don't think so.
and the armchair isn't here,
Bill,
it goes shorter.
He's lying.
On that note, everybody, I'm Michael Devine. This is Gray Matters Radio. I am America's counselor. And remember, everybody, the next time someone asks you, you Democrat, you Republican, you red, you blue, say whatever, man. Fuck that noise. My ass is gray. All right, everyone, you be good to each other. We got a long couple weeks here of elections, but we can make it through it together, all right? You be good to each other. We'll see you next week. Peace.